My name is Avery Lane. The backyard in Kansas City throbbed with music, fairy lights stitched across the fence like glowing veins, the air thick with smoke from grilled burgers. Laughter bounced off the patio. Plastic cups clinked. It was my mother's birthday, and as always, the night revolved around her voice. Mom stood on the steps, glass lifted high, chin tilted like she owned the world. Judith Lane never asked for attention. She took it. "Some kids," she announced, eyes locking onto my brother Travis, "make you proud every single day." Cheers, applause, Travis grinned like a celebrity. Then her gaze slid to me. "And others," she continued, smiling sweetly, "you wish you didn't have to see it all." The crowd laughed. Dad stared into his drink. He didn't look at me. I raised my glass slowly and smiled right back at her. "Good news, Mom," I said calmly. "Your wish already came true. I live in Charlotte now. I'm gone." The music kept playing, but something shifted. Conversations stalled mid-sentence. Mom's smile froze like glass cracking. Travis coughed into his beer. I set my cup down, walked inside, didn't look back. That was the last family party I ever attended. I grew up in a red brick house on the outskirts of Kansas City. The driveway was split with old winter scars. The garage always smelled like motor oil and forgotten baseball gloves. Inside, life worked on a scoreboard system, say, and Travis always won. Mom ran the house like a coach managing a star player. Travis was the pitcher, the hero. His games filled the fridge calendar. His needs came first, second, and third. My 8th birthday landed on a Tuesday. I came home expecting at least a grocery store cake, the cheap kind with plastic balloons stuck on top. The counter was empty. Just a note. "Travis has practice. Order pizza if you're hungry." I ate cereal standing up. Milk dripped onto the linoleum. Nobody noticed. Dad came home late. He loosened his tie, ruffled my hair once, and walked away. That was his apology. Travis's birthdays were block-wide events. Bounce houses, rented grills, Mom standing at the gate, bragging about his stats like he was already famous. I sat on the porch counting cars, wondering if anyone remembered I existed. Mom never hid the favoritism. "Travis is going places," she'd say while folding his uniforms. "You need to support him." Support meant giving up weekends, sitting in bleachers, handing over allowance money when his fundraiser fell short. Complaining didn't work in our house. Complaining made you invisible faster. Dad worked downtown, buried in spreadsheets. He came home tired, kicked off his shoes, and vanished into the den with the TV. If Travis needed gear, Dad signed checks. If I asked for $20 for a school trip, "Ask your mother." Conversation over. The only person who ever really saw me was Aunt Eileen, Dad's younger sister. She lived above a bakery across town where cinnamon soaked into the walls. She showed up randomly on Sundays, her beat-up Honda trunk full of groceries she didn't need to buy. Mom tolerated her. Barely. Eileen waited for moments when Mom was distracted. Then she'd slide an envelope into my backpack. $50, sometimes $100. "For books," she whispered, tapping her nose like it was classified information, "or whatever you need." I used the first envelope to buy access to programming books at the community center. That was the first time I felt like I owned something that was mine. One afternoon, Travis left for a tournament. The house emptied with him. As soon as the minivan disappeared, Eileen knocked on the back door. She handed me a bus pass. "There's a coding club downtown," she said. "You should go." The room smelled like burnt coffee and dry erase markers. Kids my age typed like they were racing time. The instructor helped me write my first line of code. "Hello, Avery." The screen glowed, and something inside me clicked open. A door I didn't know existed swung wide. Mom found out months later. I'd left a printout on the kitchen table, a basic assignment about loops and variables. Nothing impressive, just proof I was learning. She picked it up between two fingers like it was dirty. "This," she said, shaking the paper, "is what you're wasting time on." Travis needed new catcher gear. The old one was cracked. That mattered more. She crumpled the page and tossed it in the trash. I waited until the house went quiet, pulled it back out, smoothed the wrinkles against the counter and taped it inside my math notebook like a secret contract with myself. Dad saw everything. He stood there pouring coffee, steam rising between us. Our eyes met for half a second. He looked away first and carried his mug into the den. Door closed. That was Harold Lane's superpower, choosing the path with the least noise. Aunt Eileen kept the envelopes coming. She never asked for thank yous, never asked what I spent it on. Once she drove me to an electronic surplus store on the edge of town. Bins of dusty circuit boards, tangled wires, old machines stacked like skeletons. I bought a broken laptop someone had abandoned. When I came back to the car, hugging it like treasure, she smiled. "Build something." I did. The basement storage room became my workshop. Really, it was a closet with a folding table and a single bulb hanging from a wire. The air smelled like damp cardboard and forgotten summers. I took the laptop apart screw by screw. Cracked screen. Dead battery, but when I jumped the motherboard to an old power supply, it lit up. That was the first machine I ever brought back to life. I didn't name it. Names felt like promises. Travis made varsity junior year. The local paper printed his photo. Glove raised, Mum beaming in the background. They framed it and hung it in the hallway, right where my kindergarten art used to live. Every morning I walked past it on my way to the bus, backpack heavy with library books, and Eileen's latest envelope hidden inside. Mum threw another party when a scout started showing interest. Streamers, balloons, a cake that read Future Pro in blue icing. I ate a corner slice alone in the kitchen. Eileen found me there, leaned against the counter, and slipped another envelope into my pocket. "Keep going," she said softly. Her voice carried certainty, like she'd already seen the ending. The storage closet became my hideout. I dragged in a card table from the garage, found a gooseneck lamp at a yard sale for $2. The bulb buzzed faintly, while shadows stretched across the concrete walls. Library books stacked high, C++, Python, networking manuals, dog-eared by strangers before me. I biked downtown to check them out, stuffing my backpack before Mom noticed I was gone. Reading code felt like cracking a hidden language. Every line a puzzle, every solution a small victory. I bought my first real laptop with envelope money, met a guy in a gas station parking lot. The screen flickered. The keyboard missed the letter J. But it booted. That was enough. I pried it open with a butter knife, cleaned dust from the fan, replaced the battery with parts scavenged from junk. When it finally ran without crashing, I stared at the glowing cursor like it was a heartbeat. Upstairs, Travis practiced batting swings in the hallway. Downstairs, I built a world no one else could see. Mum discovered the setup one Saturday morning. She came down looking for Christmas ornaments and froze in the doorway. "What is all this junk?" Power cords snaked across the floor. Circuit boards lined the table. A surge protector plugged into the dryer outlet hummed dangerously. She kicked a cable aside. "This is trash. Travis needs this space for his weight bench." I didn't argue. I unplugged everything, coiled the wires, waited until she stomped upstairs. Then I moved the entire setup deeper into the corner behind paint cans, where the light barely reached. The next day I skipped lunch, used my cafeteria money, and bought a longer Ethernet cable. I drilled a hole through the floor joist and fed the wire up to the living room router when no one was home. That cable was my lifeline. I installed Linux, Ubuntu, free and forgiving. Error messages flashed red across the screen. I learned to read them like warning labels. Reboot, fix, repeat. Winter break arrived. Travis left for baseball camp in Florida. The house fell quiet for the first time in years. A neighbor dumped an old desktop during trash pickup. I dragged it home under cover of darkness, wheels squeaking on the sidewalk. Inside were usable parts. I stripped what worked, soldered connections with a borrowed iron, and built a second machine. It ran hot, fans screaming, but it stayed online. I connected the two computers with a crossover cable, a cluster. Nothing fancy, just enough power to run experiments. One program predicted rain from barometric data. Another sorted Travis's batting stats from newspaper clippings, useless to anyone else. Proof to me that it worked. Mum caught me again during spring cleaning. "You're turning this house into a landfill," she snapped. "This is why you'll never amount to anything. Travis trains with professionals and you play with garbage." I rebuilt everything after she left, exactly as it was. That night I configured RAID storage, redundancy, backup systems, machines talking to each other in quiet cooperation. I named the network Nothing. Labels invited questions. By sophomore year, the storage closet had a rhythm. Dinner upstairs, plates clattering, Travis talking stats, Mom orbiting him like a proud planet, Dad nodding at the TV, then I'd slip downstairs. Headphones on, door cracked, just enough for air. The bulb buzzed, fans hummed, screens glowed in the dark like city lights. Online forums became my classroom. Strangers with usernames like Kernel Panic and BiteMage answered questions at 2 a.m. I traded bug fixes for reputation points. Learned to debug crashes that froze entire systems. Every solved error felt like carving my name into stone. The server stack grew one discarded tower at a time. 4 machines bolted onto a metal shelf I mounted into the wall. Cooling came from box fans zip-tied to the frame. It roared constantly, a low mechanical growl that vibrated through the floorboards. I hosted a private website that displayed uptime stats. After a month, it read 99.9%. I stared at that number longer than any report card I'd ever earned. Mum stopped coming downstairs. She complained about the electric bill, but Dad paid it without a word. The machines kept running. My corner of the basement slowly transformed into a tiny data center. Ugly, loud, perfect, mine. The acceptance letter arrived on a grey fall afternoon. Cream envelope, gold seal, my name printed bold across the front. It sat half buried under Travis's scouting letters on the kitchen counter. UNC Charlotte, full scholarship, tuition, room, board, books. My hands shook opening it. I waited until dinner. The table smelled like meatloaf and instant potatoes. Steam fogged the windows. Travis scrolled his phone. Dad chewed methodically. Mom passed gravy. I cleared my throat. I got into UNC Charlotte, full ride. Silence hit like a dropped curtain. Mom set the gravy boat down too hard. It splashed. "Charlotte," she repeated. "That's across the country." "It's 900 miles, I said. "The program starts in January." "You're not going." The words came sharp and final. "Travis has showcases, college coaches flying in. He needs you here. Errands, scheduling, support." She turned to Dad. "Harold, tell her." Dad wiped his mouth. "It's a long way," he muttered. That was it. Heat climbed my neck. "This is my future Ilasa," I said, "not his assistant job." Mom leaned forward. "Your future is helping family. Travis gets drafted. We all benefit. You stay. Community college if you're so smart. End of discussion." I stood up, chair scraping tile. "It's not your decision." I grabbed the letter and walked upstairs while she shouted about ingratitude. That night, I completed enrollment online while Travis showered. Every form, every signature, confirmed. Green checkmark, done. The house turned cold after that. Mom ignored the boxes I packed, scheduled Travis's appointments during my work shifts. Dad drove me to the DMV in silence, refused to co-sign dorm papers. Ask your mother. Aunt Eileen showed up one evening and pulled me into the garage. She pressed a debit card into my hand. 500 loaded, she whispered. Flight, emergencies, you're doing this. I booked a one-way red-eye. The night before leaving, Mom cornered me in the laundry room. You walk out that door, she said, folding jerseys with sharp snaps. You're on your own. No holidays. No help. Ever. I met her eyes. I know. Departure morning was grey and frozen. 4 a.m. breath fogging in the porch light. My duffel bag sat at the curb. The house stayed dark. No one came out. The rideshare pulled up. The driver loaded my bags. I stared at the windows one last time. Headlights swept the driveway. Aunt Eileen's Honda rolled in. She jumped out and hugged me tight. Couldn't let you go alone. We drove to the airport in quiet comfort, old rock playing low. She waited at the glass until security swallowed me. On the plane, Kansas City shrank into a patchwork of lights. Mom texted mid-flight, Travis has a scout dinner tonight, don't forget to call. I deleted it. I traced the campus map as the plane descended, 900 miles. A new zip code, my own key. Eileen texted just before landing, proud of you, build something big. I saved it, powered off the phone, stepped into Charlotte air that smelled like jet fuel and possibility. Dorm room 312 was empty except for 2 beds and a desk by the window. I unpacked the laptop first, plugged it in, watched the familiar boot screen glow. No hiding, no basement closet. This space was mine. Orientation began the next morning. I walked across the quad in a scholarship hoodie. No one knew my last name. No one needed me to carry baseball gear. Just code. A clean slate, Charlotte winter came without snow. Just damp grey cold that crept into lectures. The scholarship covered tuition but not much else. I took diner shifts off campus. Endless coffee refills, grease on my hands, tips in wrinkled singles. Nights belonged to a warehouse on the industrial edge of town. I stocked medical supplies under buzzing fluorescent lights, boxes of syringes, gloves, masks, forklifts whining through narrow aisles. Sleep came in fragments between classes. One Thursday, a rush order hit. Supervisor yelling, everyone moving too fast. I reversed the pallet, jacked too quickly around a corner. The strap caught. Boxes tipped. I jumped back. My foot slid on spilled packing peanuts. The pallet edge slammed into my ankle. White-hot pain. Concrete rushed up. Alarm screamed. Power! Kill the power! Logan appeared out of nowhere, kneeling beside me. Don't move! He wrapped his belt tight above the swelling, elevated my leg on a crushed box, dialed 911. The manager hovered uselessly. The ambulance came fast. Logan rode with me holding my backpack. You're not paying for this, he said. Workers' comp. X-rays showed a clean fracture. Boot, crutches, rest I couldn't afford. He drove me back to the dorm in his rusted Civic. You're not falling behind, he said. I've got your notes. And he meant it. The warehouse fired me a week later. Policy, injuries were bad for numbers. The diner cut my hours too. Slow season, the manager claimed without meeting my eyes. Rent didn't slow. Bills didn't care about fractures. I limped into the financial aid office and begged for emergency assistance. They offered a loan with interest and sympathy. I signed because hunger negotiates fast. That night, Aunt Eileen wired $300. No lecture, no guilt, just a text. Eat. Logan brought pizza to the dorm lounge and spread shipment logs across the table like treasure maps. We handled thousands of boxes every night, he said. Hospitals lose track of this stuff during surges. What if we built software that predicts shortages before they happen? He sketched flowcharts in grease stains, machine learning models, forecasting systems. I stared at the numbers and felt that same basement click from years ago. It made sense. Drew overheard us in the computer lab the next day. Senior, bioinformatics, quiet intensity. He corrected our math without introducing himself, then sat down and started coding. That was the team. 3 broke students and a borrowed lab. We lived in the engineering basement. Old machines hummed like tired lungs. The prototype ran on my rebuilt laptop, chained to Logan's desktop, and Drew's monster gaming rig. We scraped public CDC data, warehouse logs I'd memorized before getting fired, shipment patterns, seasonal spikes. The first model hit 85% prediction accuracy. We stared at the screen in silence. Then Logan screamed. Investor demos started small. Professors first, then local health startups. Most smiled politely. One angel investor didn't. He'd lost a cousin during a supply shortage outbreak. He wrote a 6-figure check. We incorporated as BioPredict AI in a room that smelled like old carpet and cheap coffee, filed a provisional patent, rented an office above a vape shop where the stairwell always smelled like artificial watermelon. Whiteboards covered every wall. Logan ran operations. Drew refined the models. I built infrastructure. My crutches turned into a walking boot, then sneakers. The ankle healed crooked but strong. We launched beta with 3 hospital partners. Dashboards lit up in real time. Procurement teams watched alerts roll in like weather warnings. Revenue trickled, then flowed. Mom called once collect from Kansas City. Travis signed a minor league deal, she said. You should congratulate him. I let it go to voicemail. Aunt Eileen texted. Coffee emoji, fire emoji, proud emoji. That was enough family. The platform scaled faster than we could breathe. We hired interns, moved servers to the cloud. Hospitals expanded contracts. Our system predicted regional shortages before news stations did. The first big renewal hit, and Logan high-fived me so hard I nearly dropped my laptop. From warehouse floor to this, he laughed. Drew didn't celebrate. He was already typing the next update. An email landed Tuesday morning. TechCrunch. 30 under 30. I read it twice. Our photo sat in the article. Blazer over jeans, Logan grinning, Drew looking mildly annoyed by the camera. The headline called us, the trio turning data into lives saved. Notifications exploded. Investors, conferences, journalists. We flew to San Francisco for the awards, rented formal wear we didn't know how to wear. On stage, the spotlight burned white. I held the trophy and kept the speech short. Cameras flashed like lightning. Back in Charlotte, a hurricane knocked out half the grid. Our system rerouted medical shipments automatically. ICS stayed stocked. Emails came in from hospital admins. Grandmothers got chemo on time. Kids got insulin. That's when the platform stopped being a project. It became responsibility. The buyout offer came 6 months later. A pharmaceutical giant VP flew in on a private jet. Numbers filled the whiteboard. 8 figures, stock options.
Retention bonuses. Logan negotiated like a shark. Drew ran valuation models until sunrise. I signed at dawn. The wire hit the same week. I paid off debts I didn't owe. Wired Aunt Eileen enough for a new car. She sent a photo from the dealership with the caption, "No more Honda leaks." Then I started house hunting. Lake Norman appeared like a painting. Blue water, pine trees, quiet coves. The villa sat glass-fronted and modern with a dock stretching into the lake. A kitchen big enough to host 10 conversations at once. I walked the empty great room and heard my footsteps echo. No scoreboards, no comparisons, just space. Closing took 30 days. The first thing I installed was the table. Solid oak, 10 feet long, seats for 10, no assigned places. I sanded the surface myself. Logan helped level the benches. Drew installed smart lights that obeyed voice commands like magic. We christened it with takeout barbecue. Sauce stained the wood. Laughter filled the room. That was the point. The acquisition kept us on as consultants. I flew to New York for board meetings, presented forecasts in rooms full of people who used words like leverage and ecosystem. BioPredict rolled into national networks. Press releases bragged about coverage across the Southeast. My equity vested quietly in the background, numbers growing without drama. I invested most of it and forgot to look. The lake house became something else, not a trophy. A headquarters for the people I chose. Neighbors drifted over for dock cookouts. Raphael, the single dad next door, brought his daughter and a cooler of sodas. Dr. Khan drove down for weekend visits and argued philosophy on the deck. I hosted coding boot camps in the basement media room for local teens. One kid fixed a bug in our open source repo and watched his commit go live. I framed the message above the fireplace. Thanksgiving came, and the oak table held its first holiday. No tension, no scorekeeping. Logan carved turkey badly. Drew mixed cocktails that were mostly lime. Raphael's daughter folded napkins into swans. We ate until plates stacked like architecture. No one checked baseball stats. No one compared anyone. Just noise and warmth. That was family. 6 years passed. Then the invitation arrived. Heavy cardstock, gold lettering, Mom's 60th birthday. The envelope had my old Kansas City address crossed out and my Charlotte one printed neatly below. Someone had tracked me down. I turned it over in my hands twice. Curiosity won. I booked the flight. Kansas City felt smaller when I landed. The rental car smelled like pine cleaner. I drove past the high school field where Travis once practiced, past the diner where I wiped tables. The red brick house looked tired, paint peeling, driveway split deeper. Balloons bounced from the mailbox, music from the backyard. I parked down the street and walked up in jeans and a blazer. Guests crowded the patio, neighbors, coaches, relatives blurred by time. Dad spotted me first by the grill. "Avery," he said flatly. Quick hug, charcoal and smoke. Mom appeared in the doorway, wiping her hands. "You came," she said. No smile. Travis lumbered over, older, heavier, handshake limp. "Heard you're some tech hotshot," he laughed. The party swirled. Cake, speeches, community service stories about Mom. I stood at the edge drinking water. Then she raised her glass. "To family," she said. Her eyes locked onto mine. "Some kids," she added sweetly. "You wish you didn't have to see every day, but blood keeps you stuck with them." Laughter burst across the yard. Déjà vu. Sharper this time. I set my cup down and walked straight to her. "Your wish came true years ago," I said quietly. "I live in Charlotte permanently." Her face hardened. "Don't make a scene." "No scene," I replied. "Just facts." I turned and walked through the crowd. Travis shouted something about respect. I didn't slow down. Keys already in my hand. The red eye lifted into darkness. Mom called midair. "We need to talk." I blocked the number before the seatbelt sign turned off. Charlotte greeted me at dawn. The lake shimmered like nothing had changed. I brewed coffee and sat on the dock. 6 years of silence confirmed. Dad emailed once. "Your mother's upset. Travis lost sponsorship. Archived." Aunt Eileen texted a thumbs up emoji. That was the entire conversation. I updated my emergency contact to Logan, changed beneficiary forms. Legal paperwork sealed the distance. Kansas City shrank to a weather notification. Nothing more. Weeks later, Travis tried from another number. Slurred voicemail, lawyer fees, money, deleted, trash emptied, permanent. Mom's party photos surfaced online. Smiles staged perfectly. No sign I'd ever been there. I unfollowed and moved on. Distance wasn't miles anymore, it was settings. Aunt Eileen visited the lake house that spring. She drove the shoreline slowly, windows down. "Proud doesn't cover it," she said over dinner. We toasted with sparkling water. She didn't ask about Kansas City, didn't need to. Some love understands silence. Christmas opened the lake house wide, lights wrapped the dock. Pine scent drifted from a towering tree in the great room. Invitations had gone out weeks earlier, simple cards with coordinates instead of an address. People arrived carrying food and laughter. Aunt Eileen came first, arms full of bakery boxes. Drew followed with craft beer. Raphael and his daughter brought homemade tamales. Dr. Kahn arrived last, scarf perfectly knotted, tin of spiced nuts in hand. The oak table filled all 10 seats. Candles flickered, plates piled high. Conversation overlapped in warm waves, no tension, no hierarchy, just presence. Halfway through dinner, my phone vibrated. Kansas City area code? I silenced it. It rang again. I stepped into the kitchen and answered quietly. Mom's voice cracked through the line. Travis lost everything. Sponsorship's gone. House foreclosure. Lawsuits. He needs help. I looked back at the table. Eileen laughing mid-sentence. Drew taking pictures. Raphael teaching his daughter a card trick. Dr. Kahn arguing gently about AI ethics. My real world. "Tell him to call a lawyer," I said. "He's family," Mom snapped. "This table has no room," I replied calmly, "for people who pushed me out." I hung up, blocked the number, turned the phone off, returned to dinner. Drew raised an eyebrow. I shook my head once. Conversation flowed on like nothing had happened. And that was the victory. After dessert, I stood with a glass in my hand. "One more thing," I said. The room quieted. I announced the Avery Lane Foundation, funded from acquisition money. Full scholarships for low-income STEM students stuck in homes that didn't believe in them. Mentorship included. Housing support. Escape routes built into education. Applications opened in January. Dr. Kahn volunteered to chair the board immediately. Eileen wiped tears and nodded like she'd expected this all along. We toasted. The energy in the room felt electric. Hope spreading table to table. Later, we stepped outside for fireworks over the lake. Color reflected across the water. Raphael's daughter screamed with joy. Adults laughed like kids. Dr. Kahn leaned close. "This," he said softly, "is legacy." I watched the sky explode and felt something settle inside me. Not pride, completion. The foundation launched that spring. Applications flooded in. The first recipient was a girl from rural Missouri whose parents wanted her married at 18. She coded her way into a full ride. I handed her the check at orientation. She hugged me like I'd handed her oxygen. Mom tried one last time. A forwarded letter asking for Travis's rehab costs. I stamped it returned to sender. No anger, no drama, just closure. Aunt Eileen moved into a condo 10 minutes away. Sunday dinners became routine. Her recipes, my grill, Drew and Raphael rotating in, kids growing taller every season, Dr. Kahn consulting for fun after retirement. The oak table saw everything. Grant celebrations, quiet takeout Tuesdays, birthdays without comparisons, no empty seats reserved for guilt, only people who chose to be there. Years passed. The foundation funded dozens of students. Patents filed, companies launched, their thank you emails framed beside the original TechCrunch trophy. One quiet Christmas Eve, I sat alone at the table with coffee steaming, the lake frozen at the edges, the house humming softly around me. Peace has a sound. It's gentle. It doesn't ask permission. I looked at the empty chairs and smiled. Family wasn't blood. Family was who showed up, who stayed, who chose you back. I built mine from scratch. Rooted deep. Unshakable. Charlotte wasn't where I ran to. It was where I arrived. Forever chosen.